Of the chapter. You know by how? How the French women got the right to vote. Children, when we talk about the French women right to vote, we would like to discuss here the life of one revolutionary woman, the life of Olympe de Gouges. She was one of the most important of the politically active women in revolutionary France. She protested against the constitution and the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. In 1791, she wrote a Declaration of the Rights of Women and Citizen, which she addressed the Queen and the members of the National Assembly. She demanded that she could act upon it. In 1793, we find Olympe de Gouges criticized the Jacobin Club for forcibly closing down women's club. She was tried by the National Convention, which charged her with treason. Soon after, she was executed. As she was executed, we find one more drawback during this French Revolution. And what was this revolution or the social reform which was found during the French Revolution? The greatest social reform was the abolition of slavery. That is our next topic. The greatest social reform made by the Jacobin Club was to abolish slavery in French society. The French societies in the Caribbean, like the Martinique and Saint Domingo, were important suppliers of tobacco, indigo, sugar, coffee, etc. The French needed workers for plantation in these areas. But the Europeans did not want to work in distant unknown lands. Thus, a three-way trade in slaves started between three countries, and these countries were Europe, Africa, and America in the 17th century. This was known as the triangular slave trade. French merchants sailed from the ports of the Bordeaux or Nantes to the African coast, where they brought slaves from local chieftains. They were all branded, shackled, and packed tightly into the ship for 3-month-long voyage. Throughout the 18th century, there was a little criticism of slavery in France. Children, here we will move to the interrelated topic, that is the abolition of slavery in colonies. We find that after long debates, the National Convention passed a law in 1794. It declared slavery illegal and freed all slaves in France's overseas colonies. After 10 years, Napoleon introduced slavery to please the plantation owners who considered enslaving African blacks as their right. The slaves were known as the African Negroes. Finally, slavery was abolished in the French colonies in 1848. Children, the French Revolution, the first revolution in the world history, had a great impact on everyday life. Now, we will study what was the revolution effect on everyday's life. After 1789, many changes took place in the lives of women, men, and children in France. The revolutionary government took it upon themselves to pass laws that could translate the ideals of liberty and equality into everyday practice. One such important law that came into effect after the storming of the Bastille in the summer of 1789 was the abolition of censorship. According to censorship, all written material and cultural activities could be performed or published only after they have been approved by the censors of the king. Moving ahead, we find that with the abolition of censorship and the Declaration of the Rights of Men and Citizens, freedom of speech and expression became a natural right of men. This led to the growth of newspaper, pamphlets, books, and printed pictures. They all discussed and described the events and changes taking place in France. Freedom of the press gave voice to opinions and counter opinions. Plays, songs, and festive processions attracted a large number of people. This was one way they could grasp an identity with ideas such as liberty or justice. Now we come to the end of the chapter. Important part, the conclusion of this important chapter, that is the French Revolution. In 1704, Napoleon Bonaparte, the famous French general, crowned himself Emperor of France. He conquered neighboring European countries and forced into dynasties. He saw himself as a modernizer of Europe. He introduced many laws such as the protection of private property and a uniform system of weights and measures provided by the decimal system. Many people saw Napoleon as a liberator who would bring freedom for the people. But soon his army came to be viewed everywhere as invader force. Finally, Napoleon was defeated at the Waterloo in 1815. Even after his defeat, ideas of Napoleon on liberty and modern laws continued in other parts of Europe. The ideas of liberty and democratic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution, which spread all over Europe. This led to the abolition of feudal system and freedom of colonial nations. Children, not only the other parts of the world, even India had an impact of the French Revolution. Tipu Sultan and Raja Ram Mohan Roy are some of the Indians who were inspired by the ideas of the French Revolution.